there we go. Like, what is going on here? Hi, it's Sonia here, The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So usually I post videos about knitting, crocheting. I have lots of patterns. I have stitch tutorials. I sometimes do yarn hauls. And today I'm doing what I like to call is a crochet chat, where I sit in front of my door because it's the only space I've got, and I crochet. And today I am working on this shawl, which I have shown it before, and we are making some progress on this. I'm really liking how it's turning out. So this will be a pattern on the channel eventually, and I just want to apologize for the lighting. I've struggled with lighting in this room. This is a different filming space for a while, and my ring light decided to just, it's done, it died. I mean, I didn't spend a lot on it, but it's very annoying, so I'm gonna have to get another one. So I'm just making do with some lamps and stuff. So because this room is kind of, the lighting is rough in this room. So where I used to film was my bedroom, and I had an overhead light, and I used to help with the lighting, but I don't have one in this room. So, you know, we're doing the best that we can with what we've got so far. So I'm going to have to poke around on Amazon and look for another ring light. So my last crochet chat, I did something completely different. I was featured my desk that I redid the desktop. So so far it's holding up okay. As I said in the video, if you watched it, like where the edges of the desk, it is definitely lifting a little bit. So I'm going to have to find some glue to get that to stay on there. I don't know what is on the desk that's preventing it from sticking, but you know, it was only $7 for that stuff. Actually, it was less than $7 because when I bought it, sometimes when you buy things on Amazon, they have coupons, and that particular item, there was a coupon. So of course I'm like, yes, we will use the coupon. So I think it was maybe like $6.25 for that roll of contact paper. So, you know, I'm pretty happy with that. Definitely, it was a great price, and you know, it did the job for that sad desk that I had. But yeah, I'm going to get started on this. Don't have a lot to, these crochet chats tend to kind of just be random. This is definitely a pattern that I will be featuring on the channel. I'm hoping to get it done this week soon. I'm really trying to find, there's the problem with the yarn I'm using. So I'm using this Hobie yarn, and for some reason there's a lot of knots in it. So I have been taking apart the knots because I just don't like it. So I have lots of, I have a ton of ends to weave in. I've used this yarn before and I didn't have that issue, so I don't know if it was just, I did buy it at a thrift store, so maybe that was why it was at the thrift store. But you know, that's okay. I'll just take my time with weaving in the ends, and I can't seem to find, okay, there we go. Like, what is going on here? And I'm gonna try to not look too much in the camera because the light that I have is totally blinding me, and that I'm, you know, trying to illuminate this room. So I have this light and it's like going right into my brain. But yeah, I'm hoping that I'll have this shawl up maybe within the next 2 weeks. It's pretty easy pattern. It's definitely a lace pattern. So if you've never done crochet lace before, I wouldn't be afraid of it. I know some people, they hear lace and they're just like, oh, I could never do that. But crochet lace usually is just made with finer yarn and still regular crochet stitches, you know, and smaller hooks. So if you don't want to use fine yarn for this project, you could definitely use a heavier yarn like a DK weight or even a worsted weight. I mean, I'm gonna have some options with this shawl, so you can kind of play around with the size. So if you are using the same exact stitch counts and rows that I'm doing, and with worsted weight yarn, that your shawl would be huge. And if you want a huge shawl, then that would be great. But you know, some people might not want a really huge shawl. So or if you really do want a huge shawl, then you can definitely do that with this project. I try to make a lot of my patterns like that so that you can kind of customize it to fit your needs, because everybody is different, and some people like really large shawls, some people don't want to have a really large shawl. So I try to do that with patterns, whatever it is, if it's hats or a sweater or a blanket or whatever. I just love to have different choices. I know some people, I guess if they struggle with making decisions, then maybe that wouldn't be a good thing for them. But I've always liked to have choices. So I try to do that with my patterns. And also I try to do it that way because not everybody, can get a hold of Hobie yarn, or, or they don't like using it. Or they only have like, this hook I'm using is a G hook, and I guess a 4.25 millimeter. G hooks can kind of range from 4.25 millimeter to 4 millimeter, or I've even seen some G hooks that are 4.5 millimeter. This one, I'm not sure. It's pretty old and it just says size G. So it kind of feels like 4.25 millimeter. I think that's pretty standard with a G hook. But maybe you don't have a G hook and you don't want to buy a G hook, or you can't afford it. You could definitely use a different hook size for this project. Just keep in mind, if you're using thicker yarn, different hook size, your shawl will look a little bit different than mine. So, that's just something you always need to keep in mind when you're working a pattern. Let's say you wanted to make a hat, and the hat pattern called for worsted weight yarn and an eye hook, and you only have a decate weight yarn and a G hook. Well, your hat's going to be a whole lot smaller. And that might be what you want, but some people don't quite understand that, and they'll be like, this pattern is wrong, the hat is too small. And it's like, well, you didn't use the same yarn that the designer used. So just keep that in mind with things. But if you wanted to make that pattern and wanted it to be smaller, then that would be perfect. So yeah. And the same goes if you wanted it to be bigger, you could use, like heavier yarn and a, different size hook. Oops, and I just made a mistake. That happens. I get to talking and then I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's what it helps to know what you're doing so that you can spot the mistakes. And I've already done that. Like I was cruising along on this, and then I'm like, I missed an important section of this pattern. Now it is my own design, so I guess, it doesn't matter, but it just wasn't going to look right if I didn't fix it. So I went back and I had to frog or rip back like 3 rows. I was like, oh, but at least it wasn't like, at least I didn't think I was finished and then found the mistake. That would have been very painful. I have done that before. I remember making a blanket, and it was a gift for somebody. It was, I think, a wedding shower gift. And I definitely had I was on a time crunch. So I'm trying to bang out this blanket, crocheting, my fingers off. And I thought I was just about done. I think I was working on the border. So I would just laid it out on the floor just to kind of see, make sure it was looking okay. And then I saw it couple rows back, no, not even a couple, it was halfway that the mistake was. And I was just like, oh, then I'm thinking, well, it's not that bad, it doesn't really show up. But because it was a gift, I'm like, and I'm a perfectionist, I was just like, I don't like it, it really bothers me. So I ended up frogging back so many rows. It was probably 30 rows I had to frog back of this blanket. That was not fun, but I did feel better. I eventually, I got it done in time. I just was crocheting my heart out trying to get that done, and I got it done, and I felt much better because then the mistake was gone. I mean, I know some people don't care, but I do, I just do. Now sometimes you can kind of fudge a mistake and fix it, but with that, I was like, no, I can't. Yeah, I should have checked earlier. I should have checked earlier when I was working on that, and then I would have spotted the mistake, but I didn't. But at least I knew what the mistake was. So it is important, as I say, to know how to read your work so that you can spot those mistakes, or you can reassure yourself that you're on the right track, that, everything is going as it should, and, the pattern is looking the way it should. Because some people, they don't really understand how things are supposed to look. So even if they are doing it right, they might second guess themselves because they really, as I say, they don't know how to read their work. They don't know how to recognize if a stitch is correct or not. So they might think, oh, this is wrong. Or, most times it's the other way, where they look at it and they're just like, I know this is wrong, but I don't know how to fix it. I don't know where I went wrong. And that is because they, haven't learned how to read their work, and, they don't quite understand the components of a stitch. Like, I like to, as I call it, the anatomy of a stitch. I like to know how it's made up, and, how it's supposed to look. Like, I'm just kind of nerdy that way, I guess. And I am really into my fiber crafts too. Not everybody is, so not everybody, they might be like, Sonia, it is not that deep. It just doesn't matter. And at the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't, but it matters to me. And I like to know what my stitches are supposed to look like. And, I want my projects to look as nice as they can, especially if I am giving it to somebody. Now, I saw a recent, I didn't watch it, but I have watched this YouTuber occasionally, and she basically just talks about crocheting and knitting, and she's very sweet, and I have enjoyed some of her videos. But she had one about, I guess, the title said that she gave somebody a gift and it wasn't well received, a handmade gift. I think it might have been crocheted, I'm not sure. I'll have to watch the video. And that is hard. I have been there. That has happened to me, where I have given gifts, not a lot, but one in particular, I had given a crochet gift. It was a baby gift, and I thought it was well received, but it was not, because I was helping out at a yard sale that this person was participating in. And yeah, the blanket that I had given her for her baby was at the yard sale that I was participating in. I think she forgot that I had made that for her. I'm going to go with that. And yeah, that was a little upsetting. I mean, I wasn't like devastated, but I was more kind of annoyed and like, really? Like, I'm at this yard sale. You knew I was helping out, and I was like, it was one of those multi-family yard sales, and you put that out there. Like, it would have been, if she wanted to get rid of it, then she should have just, donated it or something like that, so that I wouldn't have known. But yeah, that was a little, and I didn't say anything. I could have, but I did not. I was I was surprised, and I was also kind of amused by it too. Like, how bold are you to have something that I made for you and now you're selling it? Like, but the funny thing was with that, and she had other crocheted items that people had made her that she was selling, and they were absolutely beautiful. And I can understand, like, you can't keep everything. Like, you just can't. And that's why I was like, you could donate it, or, give it to somebody else. But yeah, there were some other items. Like, there was this other blanket that was for sale, and whoever made it did an absolute beautiful job. It was a gorgeous baby girl blanket. And the funny thing was, those were the first 2 items that sold at that yard sale. So to me, that was the silver lining of that whole thing. And the only reason why I know they were the first 2 things sold, because I was the one that took the money. We were still setting up, and you know, with yard sales, if you've ever had a yard sale, there are people that show up. I always say no early birds when I've had yard sales. It doesn't matter. People don't care. They don't listen. They don't read. They show up when they're going to show up. So of course this person showed up as we were still setting up. It wasn't time yet. But again, you know, like I said, people, they just disregard those kind of things. But yeah, she saw them and bought them right away, and I took the money. So in my heart, I was like, you know, that was meant for that person, because she really appreciated it. And so it made me feel a little bit better. Yeah, it can be hard to give things to people. So I'm pretty careful, especially after that, giving crocheted or knitted items to people, because I will make things for charity, because I don't know who it's going to. I really don't care. And you know, I'm not one of those people too, like if I make you a hat that, you know, every time you see me, you know, you better be wearing that hat. Like, I'm not like that. You know, and when it leaves my home, I'm just like, do with it what you will. But yeah, some people I just know for a fact that I'm just never going to make them anything. Like as someone I've read somewhere, they're not crochet or knit worthy. And yeah, so some people just are not. But in my family, most of them are crochet or knit worthy, because I grew up with handmade items. Like my mom sews, she crochets, and she would do other crafts. Like I remember when I was little, probably in my elementary years, I don't know if you remember this, if you're around, I'm 51. It was fabric covered picture frames, and fabric covered photo albums were like the rage in the 80s. I think, yeah, if I was elementary, it would probably been the early 80s. And so my mom started making them because she sewed. She always had so much leftover fabric. So I think she thought, oh, this is a great way of using up, you know, bits of fabric. And so she started making a ton of those fabric covered picture frames and photo albums, and would sell them at craft shows. And, you know, they were pretty popular. Now I have not seen that in years. I still have one that my mom made, and it has a picture of my grandparents in there, especially my grandmother. She was the one who taught me how to knit. So it's very appropriate that her picture is in that picture frame, because it's handmade. But yeah, I grew up with handmade items. You know, we didn't have, like, there's another knot in this yarn. You know, my dad was a teacher, so we weren't like in the poorhouse, but we weren't rolling in money. You know, teachers back then didn't make what teachers make now. And he always, in the summertime, like everybody would say, oh, teachers, you know, they have the summers off. But my dad worked really hard. I don't ever remember my dad just having a summer off. Like, he was always hustling. You know, he worked for our neighbor who had a business. He worked for somebody else that had a painting business. He baled hay in the summer, which is like, a really rough job. He loved sports, and he used to umpire a lot of like baseball, softball games. And he would do that over the summer. And he taught summer school for a bit. He would teach summer school. And he also did photography as well. He kind of started out doing photography. He taught photography in school too. He was a science teacher, but he also, I guess it was probably like an elective or something, where he taught photography. And he would take pictures. A lot of it, when I was little, it was black and whites, and he would develop his own black and whites. He was able to use the dark room at school, and which was nice, because I don't think having a dark room in our house growing up would have worked very well. I'm sure us kids would have been like, hey dad, what are you doing? You know, and mess things up for him. Yeah, like we said, we didn't have a lot, and I just grew up with people making me items and my mom making us stuff, my grandmother knitting. My mom she's still with us as a friend. She would make us handmade gifts, and we just kind of grew up with that stuff. My sisters and I, we would make bracelets when we were little. Well, also those string bracelets that were the rage, but we would make beaded bracelets, sell them, and we would make each other things too, or friendship pins. So yeah, I grew up with handmade items, and I guess I just instinctively knew like handmade meant that somebody really cared and loved you. They took the time to make something for you, or even drawing pictures. Like my nieces and nephews or my own children would draw me a picture, and it would just be so precious. Yeah, I grew up with people just being talented with those kind of things, and knowing that when someone is making something, they're really putting their heart and soul into it. So when I receive a handmade item, even if it's not the best, I am so appreciative because that person took the time out to make something for me. They were thinking of me, and I just think that is so special and just really amazing. So yeah, but not everybody thinks that way. Not everybody is knit or crochet worthy. So yeah, now I have made things. I don't make a lot of things like on commission either, because you really can't get paid for the amount of time and the materials. Like some people are like, oh, I'll cover the cost of yarn. Okay, great. But are you going to cover the cost of, how many hours goes into actually making that? Now, somebody did ask me to make a baby blanket from my church, and we're on, I run a knit crochet group at my church, but I'm also on this other ministry team, like a leadership team for like women's ministry stuff. I don't do a whole lot on there, to be honest. I just kind of like talk about my group and sit there and maybe give a little 2 cents here and there. But there's another woman on that team, and she's having her first grandchild, and so she asked me if I would make a Winnie the Pooh, I guess it's an Eeyore themed blanket. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to, there's going to be some work involved in that, because I'm going to have to make a chart for that, because I don't even, maybe I could buy a pattern, I don't know, but I'll probably just find like an Eeyore cross stitch and make my own chart from that to translate it into crochet. And so that part is probably going to be the most work, but of course I still have to stitch it up and think of like the colors and the size of it and the border and all that stuff. So it's definitely going to be some work involved. And so she was like, well, I'll just cover the yarn, or I'll cover the yarn, don't worry, I'll pay for the yarn. But I don't think she quite understands the amount of work, but that's okay. I really like her. So, and this grandchild, it's really a miracle. So it's really special baby. Every baby is special, but some babies have a little bit of harder time getting here than others. So I know it's really special for her. It's her only child, so that it's really a special thing. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for you, but I don't do it for everybody. So yeah, I think if you first started learning how to crochet, or if you are a beginner and learning how, and people see you do it, you will get those people, oh, could you make me this? Oh, could you make me that? Don't feel obligated. Don't read, to me, I don't find it worth it to make items to sell or, on commission. So that's why I prefer making patterns, because then I can just sell the pattern. And to me, like if I've sold enough of those patterns, then I've made back my money, like especially if it's a large project with yarn. So yeah, but I think I'm gonna go because it's gonna be about dinner time and take care of my doggos. So I hope you enjoyed this crochet chat. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.